Hello everyone, Warhammer 3 and just Warhammer in general has had a lot of chaos content. I do imagine that if Total War keeps getting more support for Warhammer 3, we'll get more in the future. So whilst we're waiting for Tides of Torment, yeah, surprise surprise, more chaos content, I figured we'd talk about some chaos characters that are still not in game yet. These are lesser and rather well-known characters, and I'm going to leave it a little open here. They could be lords, they could be heroes. Just really want to talk about some chaos stuff. I may or may not have been packing a lot of chaos stuff today. But before anything, a big thank you to our video sponsor, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is a platform where you'll be able to buy games at discounted rates. There's a bunch of games coming out lately, like surprising amounts of games, which is kind of cool. And you might want to be able to get a discount so you can get as much as you want. Recently, Ark Raiders has released. I'm kind of interested in that after playing the playtest weekend that they had. And obviously Europa Universalis 4, which is 24% off even for the premium edition. And since Tides of Torment isn't coming out to December, you might as well get yourself a deal and play something else for a while. Not only that, we have a monthly giveaway going on with the game of your choice. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below and sign up. You don't even have to make a purchase. And I'm just going to give you a slight reminder to those who have signed up to previous ones. You should check to see if you've won, because there's a few winners that haven't claimed yet. But this is a company I've been working with for a while. I quite like working with them. I use their services also because right now, you know, I am on the process of moving, which, by the way, should be very, very soon. I finally got the last bit of paperwork. I'm really happy about that. And again, every now and then I want to treat myself to a game. A big thank you once again to Instant Gaming for the sponsor. Now let's return to our regularly scheduled programming. So I want to start off with a character that I really like. This is Sispeth. He is the son of Melek the Changer. Both of them were at one point the lieutenants of Archaon during the whole Storm of Chaos, and then later the End Times with minor mentions. We won't go over his father too much, but he will be mentioned quite a bit here, I guess, because, well, you know, family ties, but both of them are Aislings of Norska. When Sispeth's mother was pregnant and having difficulties giving birth, as you can imagine, there's not really a lot of medical practices in Norska, they went towards the shaman for their aid. And the tribal shaman, you know, did his thing alongside some Tzeentchian trickery, to which, yeah, Sispeth was born successfully, but mutated with the head of a bird. Which was really more of a good omen, because considering that they were more Tzeentchian followers than anything else. Sispeth was then to apprentice under the shaman, whose name was Gerkol, and, yeah, learn the ways of the sorcerer. Remember that shamans themselves are the sorcerers of Norska. What's kind of funny here is you can kind of call this a bit of nepotism in a sense, where really it was Melek who joined as Archaon's lieutenant, and then Sispeth just took over after his father's death. But it's one of the really unique looking models. Remember that at this point, Warhammer was starting to find its real footing in terms of style. We didn't really get that many mutations at that point too. Sure, there were some, but it was mostly focusing on like, this is the format for a Chaos Warrior, and this is how it's going to go going forward. In a perfect world, we'd get all the lieutenants as legendary heroes, because it would be kind of cool. I don't think Melek is kind of needed, but you never know. You never know. It depends if we get character pack DLC or not at this rate. But I don't want this video to be about, oh, if this character will be added or not. I just want to talk about some cool characters in, like, Chaos in general. We've done Tzeentch, so let's go to Khorne now, and this is Gridal. This is an exalted demon of Khorne, sometimes being known as a demon prince. It does depend on like the different blogs where you can find talks from different developers from Warhammer back in the day. The general consensus is that he's an exalted demon of Khorne. Now, I think he's more of a demonkin because we don't have the proper description of demonkin until closer to the end times, which is ironic considering that his forebear, one of his forebears, is Ulf Demonkin. So this is a family that is very, very tied to Khorne. Ulf Demonkin being worshipped as some sort of god or possibly minor deity. Again, descriptions can vary, but it's really interesting here because obviously this is a very unique styling. It's kind of similar to a Bloodletter, but it's not. And it seems the pathway to Demonkinhood, I think that's probably going to be the best way of calling it, is you have to summon in the ancestor and pledge your loyalty, obviously try and get the blessing through various different trials. However, it seems Gridal's trial was more being touched and then just, I guess, waves of pain being thrown in. It's a rather interesting situation because usually when it comes to Warhammer lore and so on, the pathway to demonhood takes a long, long time. So we don't know what Gridal might have done prior to this, or if he was just born being all-powerful as it stands and just needed to have that final blessing. I think I've always kind of liked this character just because he's so unknown. He's known as the Scourge of the South, not much is known why. Well, obviously, I mean, everything is south of Norska, so it could just be general raiding and pillaging and stuff. It's the design that gets me, the artwork. It's not really a blood letter, but the similarities are there. Instead of a blade, instead of a hellblade, you've got this giant two-handed axe. I don't know, it's really different even for the scope of Warhammer demons in general. And it makes me question as to, like, unique demons or demonkin that exist in Warhammer Fantasy that we still don't know about. Hopefully we could get some of that in Total War, or, even better, in the Old World, because, you know, it's a brand new setting, chance to get some new characters in. But tell me, how can you see an art piece like this and not think, wow, that's really unique even for Warhammer? It's very devilish, isn't it? Okay, we're jumping onto Nurgle now. We've got a rather well-known character. This one is one that I absolutely adore. Valnir the Reaper, known as the Scion of Nurgle. He's got loads of different titles. Known as a half-demon champion. Again, this is prior to the whole demonkin becoming more of a norm situation. This is a character that's been around for a long, long time, considering that he was there during the Great War Against Chaos, and he's a character that I'm really hoping that we'll see around that period as a brand new model, because like we got loads of details with like war gear and so on, right? And he just is damn cool. Valnir is very different to other Nurgle characters purely on a personality point of view. A lot of Nurgle characters would be kind of like, you know, happy-ish and so on. It's like the whole thing with Papa Nurgle, where he was more nihilistic, kind of just flat out bored, where at one point he just said, you know, like, he's done. He just doesn't care for battle. He doesn't really care about, like, expansion of lands. There was nothing there to satisfy him. That stuff was boring to him, which is wild, right? When you get that from a Nurgle character, it's very, very strange. Like, I honestly can't think of a more apathetic Nurgle character, not counting the 40k universe, obviously, because then you've got, I wouldn't call the Primarch for the Death Guard apathetic, more so a little bitch to Typhus, more than anything else. But, yeah, in fantasy, you think of Festus, right? You think of the Glotkin, which, yeah, they had a bit of a bad upbringing, but they're still very Nurgle-ish, right? So he just decided one day to just leave his tribe, go off into the Northern Chaos Wastes, essentially traveling around everywhere, because he ends up in the areas of the Kurgan at some point in the Eastern Steppes, pushed all the way into what would be considered the true North, which is that very small, well, it's not small by any means, but like in the terms of the map, it's a small bit of land where its reality meets the Ether, where there'll be a bunch of chaos spawns and half demons and so on, pushing his way through and eventually getting the blessing of Nurgle. Now, very similar to what you expect from other types of Chaos Lords of any particular god, right? At this point, he's still immortal, and he's really causing problems, to the point that the Empire and in Kislev, they fear his name, and eventually joined up with Asavar Kor, one of the greater ever-chosens of Chaos, to launch what is known as the Great War Against Chaos. So basically the setting of Warhammer the Old World, which is why I'm hoping he'll make his appearance and we'll eventually get like a brand new model and so on. So he dies in the Siege of Prague, fighting against the Tsar Romanov there, but doesn't die for good. This is again undeath. It's very weird here, right? So he just gets up again, right? He was definitely dead, but now he's considered some sort of half-demon, right? Which undeath with chaos doesn't really happen. It goes against the virtues, essentially, if we can call that virtues, of the Chaos Gods. And I don't think we've ever had a description of something like that before, just a half-dead demon. So this is why I'm like really curious about this character. Again, I'm hoping for like a really long novel on him at some point. There's something very, very odd there. Like, we've seen more skeletal types of Nurgle champions and stuff like that, but they're not really ever considered half-dead. And considering that this character was mentioned a decent amount of times in the Liber Chaotica and some army books and so on, he was also in the End Times, but nobody really cares about that. Now, we do know of characters dying and then coming back in the form of demonhood. The Chaos Gods can essentially bring them back, but it's obviously something weird here. Okay, this wasn't my choice for Sinesh, but interestingly enough, the few times that we've had news on Tides of Torment, a lot of people mention this character, which is really interesting, actually. So this character is Gilberto, and I'm not even too sure on his pronunciation. So he existed a long time ago, basically what, first edition Realm of Chaos? Long time. And what's really funny is obviously this character is known as the Denied Lord, which has eventually become, you know, the Kala, the Denied One. They're two different characters, but it's fun to see these titles kind of get reused. I don't imagine that this character is remaining in any form of canon, mostly because he's really out there for Warhammer Fantasy. Like, yes, there is a limit to how some things go in Warhammer Fantasy, and you can see where his original stuff kind of fell and got reused in Dakala, because originally an Elf Lord. He was deposed because he was a bit of a weird dude, apparently, and, you know, had no sense of morality or mortality. He's got, like, typical Sinesh mutations and so on, but, like, a bit extra to... Really, it's not very Sineshi, though I must say that the armor design is very, very nice. Hell, he's even known as the spellcaster of the lore of Sinesh. It's really weird. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing stuff like this, but I think like a design like this would better suit Age of Sigmar. I really wanted to talk about him because every time I just don't mention him because I don't really consider him here anymore. But again, it shows that there is a lot of love for like characters that have kind of faded from existence. I mean, I was going to go with a different character. I was going to talk more about Vandred the Majestic, but I don't think he's ever going to come in, considering that obviously Vandred's base model has been used for the Champions of Sinesh now, it seems. Which, again, I hope eventually becomes a tabletop model, because those would be really fun to paint. Alright, we're on the final character, and this is the one that I outright say needs to be in Total War Warhammer. The others could just be additions if CA wants to do something like that, but Crom the Conqueror, right? Vardek Crom, one of the most well-known characters in Warhammer Fantasy, and he's still not in the game series just yet, which to me is wild, absolutely wild. So what makes this character so interesting? Well, he's very much proof that, yeah, sometimes you can prove Chaos Warriors wrong in certain ways, and they will then look towards another different way of things. I know that sounds confusing, but, like, look. He was one of the chieftains, right, of the Kurgans. He was the chieftain of the Khul tribe, where Asavar Khul comes from. And he actually thought that, yeah, he was going to be the next Everchosen. Because he thought, well, Asavar was from my tribe, I am now the new chieftain. So in his mind, he was like, well, I'm going to be the next big one. I'm going to herald in the coming of chaos. Now, this isn't really new because a lot of chaos lords that are in that time would think that they were going to be the next Everchosen, even monogod lords and so on. But Vardek probably had a chance. You see, he was receiving a lot of visions of a figure in a dark silhouette, a figure that he thought was himself, because he was already imposing as it was. He was already known as a mighty warrior, probably one of the best that the Kurgan have ever seen since Asavar himself. It turned out that that wasn't true, however, because, well, Archaon was the figure of his visions. Archaon came up, beat him in combat, and asked him to join and to be his herald. And in some cases, some lords would have just, you know, said no, be killed and be done with it, right? Crom, however, didn't really want the glory for himself at this point. He wanted just the ultimate blasphemy, in a sense, right? So there he realized that Archaon was the man of his visions, and he decided to join him as his herald. He's led loads and loads and loads of battles, and he's got many victories under his belt. He's one of these characters which does get referenced quite a lot as being like, you know, peak Chaos Warrior, I think is probably the best way of saying it. And I really do like Crom the Conqueror. It's weird that a character this famous is still really not in the game yet. I mean, yeah, there's been delays of products and stuff like that, but you would have expected doing the Champions of Chaos. I don't think we actually even had a a legendary hero doing Champions of Chaos, did we? I think it's only eventuality until we get Crom the Conqueror. He's a cool character. The fact that he's, like, being able to be proven wrong and will just accept it, it's something that you don't hear a lot from Chaos, and I think I kind of like that. Now, yeah, there's a lot more characters I could have spoken about and so on, but I wanted just to talk about this because I feel like it would be a good way to go with one from each, like, god and then one undivided, right? Kind of fun characters. I have been packing up all my Chaos stuff now. Surprisingly, I have a lot of Chaos stuff. Well, more unsurprisingly, actually. But yeah, you know, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is there any other characters that you guys were thinking of? Let's have a bit of a discussion, and we should be back to normal schedule basically today, hopefully, if everything goes well. I'll see you all again very, very soon, guys. Have a good one.